All right, guys. My name is Forrest Munden. I have a check ride, a CFI check ride in 10 days. So by the time you're watching this, I'll probably already be a CFI, well into it. My goal is to be one of the best certified flight instructors in the Treasure Valley. I live in southern Idaho, and I've been doing this for about 2 years now. I have 280 flight hours. I have all my ratings, except for CFI. I got a complex rating. And my goal in this is to give you guys a lesson on the National Airspace System and all the other lessons that we're going to go through. So whether you are a PPL student, instrument, this probably isn't going to help you as much, but it might, depending on where you are in your training. You just need a little refresher. Maybe you're a CFI yourself and you want to kind of see how other people lay out your lessons. Maybe you're driving to flight school and you want something to listen to besides what I listened to for 2 years of driving. Is like, other check ride videos, or like I got obsessed with true crime or just some corny YouTube videos or whatever. Watch this video, listen to it, and hopefully it helps. Okay, so task Kilo, National Airspace System. I'm going to try to break this down as if you guys were my student, and constructive criticism is always appreciated. If I make a mistake, if I misspeak, if you want to tell me, hey, this is a better way to teach this, or this didn't really make sense to me, put it in the comments. It is extremely helpful. In the future, probably about another year from now, 2 years from now, I want to get to the point to where I'm filming my students, and I want to create kind of like, I want to share my journey with you guys. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into this. No more yapping. Task Kilo, National Airspace System. Lesson outline. The objective is to teach you guys about the National Airspace System. We're going to be referencing the FAR AIM and the PHAC. I'm using Wi-Fi CFI for these PowerPoints. Great stuff here. I'm going to be using this for my check ride. So I just want to let you guys know this is where I'm getting this from. All these PowerPoints are made by them. Lesson elements. We're going to be talking about class Alpha through Gulf Airspace, special use airspace, and we're going to be going over TFRs, temporary flight restrictions. Time frame says 60 minutes, but I can get this down to about 30 at this point. Equipment tools, you guys are looking at it. Okay, lesson outline, we're going to skip that, and here we go. National Airspace System. There are two categories of airspace. There are regulatory and non-regulatory. The categories and types of airspace are dictated by the complexity/density of aircraft movements and the level of safety required, all of which I will show you guys examples of such. Okay, this is the PHAC image. I don't like this image. It's never made any sense to me at all. I remember staring at this when I first started flight training, and this just doesn't work in my brain. So the image I use instead is this one. Also confusing, but also a little bit more helpful because it tells you when ADS-B is required. It kind of lays out the shapes a little bit better, and it just makes a little bit more sense, at least for me. It doesn't show all of the airspaces, obviously, but this is one of the ones that I reference. And I'll kind of refer to this here when it comes to airspace shapes. And if you're listening to this, I was just showing an image from the FAA about airspace. Okay, Class A airspace dimensions. It is starting from 18,000 MSL up to flight level 600, which is 60,000 feet MSL. And I'm going to try to speak slower because I want to give you guys a brief moment to kind of answer these out loud if you're driving or if you're at home, instead of just like spouting out information to you guys, because that's going to help you study. Is if you have a moment to pause it and give me the answer. Okay, what are the entry requirements for Class A airspace? First of all, you need to be under an IFR flight plan, an instrument flight plan, because all operations in Alpha Airspace is conducted under instrument flight rules, okay? Which also means, guess what? You need to be instrument rated, and your aircraft needs to be IFR rated. VFR weather minimums, there are none. Why? Because all the operations conducted within Alpha Airspace are conducted under IFR, okay? So remember, Class A airspace, A for altitude, it's up high, right? It's on the top of the stack. Class B airspace, remember, B equals busy. Bravo airspaces are incredibly busy, they're incredibly congested, and they require a lot more attention. So think of LAX, think of Dallas, think of JFK, right? I'll give you guys an example here. Class Bravo airspace, LAX area, this is absolutely bonkers. Look at this airspace. It goes, first of all, it's massive, right? Spans a huge area. Bravo shelves are all over the place compared to like this Charlie right here, or even this Delta, it's tiny. Okay, so look how it's like 5 times bigger. Just remember, Bravo is busy. Dimensions, just remember, it looks like an upside down wedding cake. Okay, it literally looks like, that's the way I remember it. That's the way a lot of you guys will remember it. When somebody asks you, hey, what does a Class Bravo airspace look like? Just tell them it looks like an upside down wedding cake, and it has shelves attached to it. Each Bravo airspace doesn't look exactly the same to the other. It is tailored to its environment and its needs, okay? And it goes from the surface up to 10,000 feet MSL. It generally spans about 10 nautical miles wide, if I remember correctly. Entry requirements. So what are the equipment requirements for entering into Bravo airspace? Aircraft must be equipped with Mode C transponder, ADS-B out, and a two-way radio. Pilot requirements to enter Class Bravo airspace. Can you enter, here's a question for you guys, Class Bravo airspace if you are a student pilot? The answer is yes. However, you need to have a proper endorsement in order to enter a Class Bravo airspace. Okay? If you do not have this endorsement and you are still a student pilot, you cannot enter the airspace. So you need to have at least a private pilot's license. VFR weather minimums. Visibility, 3 statute miles. Cloud clearance, clear of clouds. Before I even start jumping into weather minimums, I want to show you guys this real quick. This is called the airspace triangle. This is what I use to study the airspace, okay? You look at this, you're like, what the hell is this? This is some weird hieroglyphic. What does this arrow mean? What does BCDE mean? What is 1, 2, 5? What does all of this mean? You have two options. You can either study the FAA chart that's horizontally opposed, right? It's like this big, it's in your FAR aim, and it's super confusing, and it's very dry, and your brain probably is going to have a really hard time memorizing that. Or you can memorize this airspace triangle, and you will learn all of your airspace in 5 to 10 minutes, and your airspace will be memorized. Okay, I'm not going to explain this. Why? Because there are a ton of other videos that go and will explain this. Just YouTube search airspace triangle and go from there. Great tool. I wish I had discovered this sooner. Okay, weather minimums for Class Bravo airspace: 3 statute miles visibility and clear of clouds. What does it look like on the VFR sectional? It is blue, B for blue, okay? And if we go back to ForeFlight here, you can kind of see what it looks like, okay? It is literally just blue. We don't overcomplicate it. B equals blue. We already went over the weather minimums. And also remember, on Class Bravo airspace, we have the Mode C veil here, which is magenta, and it goes outside of the Class Bravo airspace 30 nautical miles. So when someone asks you, what is this big circle right here? That's a Mode C veil, and you cannot enter this Mode C veil without a Mode C, okay? It spans 30 nautical miles. Class C airspace. So this is still pretty busy airspace, but it's obviously not as busy as Bravo. I fly out of KBOI, so that's Class Charlie airspace. Its dimensions are customizable, I mean it depends on the terrain. And it says typically the lower shelf has a radius of 5 miles, reaches up to 1200 AGL, while the upper shelf has a 10 nautical mile radius and reaches up to 4000 AGL. So what exactly does that look like? Here's Class C right here, 5 miles on the inner, actually real quick, the way I remember this is an upside down top hat, okay? Upside down top hat, wedding cake, top hat. All right, it depends on the terrain. And it said that the lower shelf reaches up to, sometimes, most of the time, 1200 AGL, and then goes up to, in the second shelf, 4000 AGL, and spans 10 nautical miles wide, and the bottom part, right, the top part of the hat is 5 nautical miles wide. Okay, entry requirements. What's some of the equipment that you need in order to enter Class Charlie airspace? This is equipment. You need a Mode C transponder, ADS-B out, and two-way radio. In order to enter a Class Charlie airspace, pilots must establish two-way radio communications to enter. So what does that look like? What does that sound like? That means that you need to have your tail number recited back to you. So when you say, for example, Big Sky Approach, Skyhawk 9562 Quebec requesting landing, or whatever it is that you're doing, right? Requesting, an approach or whatever. You have to hear Roger, go ahead, 956 to Quebec, and that is establishing radio communications, okay? But if they say 956 to Quebec, stand by, that is not clearance to enter, that is not permission to enter, and though they said your tail number, you're not entering that airspace yet. So kind of a gray area there, kind of weird, right? But just know that you need to establish two-way radio communications to enter. VFR weather minimums. We have a visibility of 3 statute miles. Cloud clearance equals 1,000 above, 1,000 above, 500 below, 2,000 horizontally. Okay, Class C airspace depicted with a magenta solid line. And remember, upside down top hat. Okay, magenta solid line for Class Charlie airspace. All right, Class Delta airspace. We're just going in order of busy to less busy. Class D airspaces, I fly into Twin Falls every once in a while, and I'm telling you, there's like 2 or 3 planes flying in and out of there. I think the most I've ever seen was like 2 planes in the pattern at once, 3 planes maybe. So surrounds small towered airports and extends from the surface up to 2,500 feet AGL with a radius of 4 nautical miles. Entry requirements. What is the equipment required for Class Delta airspace? You just need a 2-way radio. That's it. You don't need a Mode CU transponder. You don't need ADSB out. You just need a 2-way radio. Because in order to enter Class D airspace, you need to establish 2-way radio communications in order to enter, which means you need to hear your tail number back. Weather minimums for this, visibility, 3 statute miles. Cloud clearance requirements equals 1,000 above, 500 below, 2,000 horizontal. Depicted on the sectional chart with a blue dotted line, okay? Class Echo airspace. This is when it starts getting messy. Every time we start talking about Class Echo and Class Golf airspace, it gets real confusing real quick. I highly suggest you spend a lot of time learning this and be very careful how you learn it, because the rule of primacy says that what you learn first often makes it hard to unlearn later. Okay, I'm speaking from experience here. So let's start with the dimensions. Remember, Echo, E, everywhere else. That means most of the continental United States is covered by Class Echo airspace. It can start at one of 3 different floors. Now, don't let this confuse you too much. You'll learn this over time. Starts at one of 3 floors and extends up to the overlying airspace. Those floors are the surface, okay? And I'll give you examples of this later. 700 feet AGL and 1,200 feet AGL. So if you're like, what? Echo spans 3 surfaces. How does that make any sense? I'm going to show you in a second. Entry requirements, none for VFR. However, if you find yourself within IMC conditions, or if you plan to enter IMC conditions, you need to be in an IFR flight plan. Weather minimums. Okay, if you are below 10,000 feet, okay, so if you're down here below 10,000 feet, visibility is 3 statute miles. Cloud clearance is 1,000 above, 500 below, 2,000 horizontally. If you go above 10,000 feet, visibility goes up. You have a lot faster moving aircraft up there above 10,000 feet, okay? You need more room to see. Just think about this. Like, why would you need more visibility higher up? Visibility goes up to 5 statute miles. Cloud clearance requirements are 1,000 above, 1,000 below, and 1 statute mile. 1 statute mile horizontally, okay? Remember, a lot of people will say 1,000 horizontally. It is not 1,000 horizontally. It is 1 statute miles horizontally, okay? 1 SM horizontally. Okay, Class E airspace. This was in like one of those things that was just really hard for me to wrap my brain around when I first started. But if you look at a sectional chart and you are within the magenta veil, right? This is the magenta veil. Right here where this is pointing, Echo starts at 700 feet. Starts at 700 feet AGL, okay? If you are within the magenta veil, Echo starts at 700 feet AGL. If you are outside of the magenta veil, literally outside of the magenta veil, Echo starts at 1,200 feet AGL, and then the airspace above that, in this case, looks like it'd be Class Alpha airspace. So it looks like this. Right here where my mouse is. Class Golf goes up to 1,199. Class Echo starts at 1,200, goes all the way up to Class Alpha airspace, which is technically 17,999. Okay? And right here you have echo at the surface, which just means that echo literally starts at the surface, okay, and goes up to alpha airspace. This is very rare, but you will see this, okay? Class E airspace minimums, we already went over that. Class Golf airspace minimums. Now, I remember Golf for Grandpa because I'm at an uncontrolled airport, untowered airport, and you just have a bunch of boomers flying around, low level, a bunch of crop dusters, right, going backwards in the pattern, going left, right, no radio calls. This is no man's land, okay? This is cowboy country, okay? Dimensions, uncontrolled airspace. This is uncontrolled airspace, okay, which means it's not monitored by the by air traffic control, okay? It is essentially any airspace that is not classified as A, B, C, D, or E. It reaches from the surface to the overlying airspace, which I just gave you an example of. Entry requirements, there are none. VFR weather minimums, covered in the next slide. This, oh my God, can you imagine trying to remember this? Can you just imagine trying to just raw dog this? It's not going to happen. I mean, some people say that's easy to remember. I don't remember it this way. However, if you go to here, this and this are exactly the same. Okay, exactly the same. This is just a lot more simple. And I promise you, if you use this on a check ride and you're kind of thinking about it, you're like, oh, Golf airspace, this will work. It does the exact same thing. I've used it in all of my check rides. That's why I'm not going to explain this. So if you're listening, I'm sorry, but this is insane. I'm not going to recite this. Okay, Class Golf airspace. What does that look like on a sectional? Okay, we kind of already talked about this, right? If you are within the magenta, Golf starts from the surface and then goes up to echo. Right here, if you were within the magenta veil, echo starts at 700 feet AGL, okay, which means Golf has to be below that. However, over here, Golf starts from the surface and goes up to 1,199. Just say 1,200, honestly, just say 1,200. Your DP is not going to care. If you are outside the veil, Golf is from the surface to 1,200, and then go up to echo above that, up to alpha. Okay? Take the time to learn this. Take the time to study this because your DP is going to try to get you. There's the airspace triangle right here. I don't use this one, but now you know where to get it. Aircraft speed limits. This is really important. This is probably going to be something that's asked on your check ride. If you are below 10,000 feet MSL, the speed limit is 250 knots. If you are below 2,500 AGL, within 4 nautical miles of C or D airport, 200 knots. Below a Class B or through Class A or B corridor, 200 knots, okay? Make this make sense. Why do you think that you need to be slower by a Class C or D airport? It's probably because if you're low and you're near an airport, you need to be slower, okay? You're not going to be going 250 knots near an airport. Class B or C, below Class B or through Class A, B, 200 knots. And if you're like, what the hell are you talking about, Horace? I have no idea. You totally lost me. Go to the FAR AIM. I use ForeFlight here and go to Federal Regulations, Part 91, and go to Part 91.117. And right here, you have your aircraft speed regulation, okay? Sometimes I like to refer to this instead of just looking at someone else's image because this is from the mouth of God, essentially, okay? So Part 91.17. All right, special use airspace. We're gonna start just blowing through this, guys. I actually use the acronym. Let's see if I can draw here. So this is gonna be messy. I didn't plan on actually doing this, but I use an acronym that I made up here. RPM, because we like our acronyms here. RPM whackin'. I don't know why, but this just makes sense in my head, and I use this day one, and it is restricted. Go ahead and say this with me. Restricted is the first one. Okay. Oh my God. Yeah. See, like I said, I wasn't planning on. Oh my God. Oh my God. How do I move this? I'm literally look at us adapting and overcoming. I'll just type it like this. Prohibited. Okay. And this one is military or MOA. Say it with me. Warning. Alert. controlled, I think I got that wrong, but we'll see. National Airspace. So let's see if this acronym works. I haven't looked at this or thought about this in a year. I just remember this is the acronym that I used was RPM Whackin'. And if it doesn't work, we'll change it up a little bit, okay? But create your own acronym, okay? All right, prohibited areas. First things first, can you enter, this is gonna be a checkride question. Whenever I ask you a question, just assume it's something that I've been asked on my checkride or stage check. Can you enter a prohibited area? No, you cannot. The reason why is because such areas are established for national security or other reasons associated with national welfare. The area is charted as P followed by the number P40. So you're asking yourself, okay, prohibited, we can't enter that, got it. It looks like an inverted fence, right? It looks very threatening, got it, we're not entering there. But if you wanted to get information on it, go to your sectional chart. I wish I had a sectional chart here, but I don't. Go to your sectional chart, go on the back, on the bottom right, there's a little square. It'll tell you prohibited area P/40, this is the code, right? The airspace code, and it'll tell you who's the controller, the times that the airspace is, you're able to enter it or leave it depending on what it is. Go to the sectional chart, go to the back, and it'll give you all the information you need about this. There's a legend. Okay, restricted. Restricted areas are areas where operations are hazardous to non-participating aircraft and contain airspace within which the flight, while not wholly prohibited, is subject to restrictions. So R3702, Fort Campbell, that's funny, that's where I used to be stationed. Go strike. All right, so it's while not wholly prohibited, it is subject to restrictions. Okay, here's the question. Can you enter the airspace? Can you enter restricted airspace? Yes, if you get approval from the controlling agency. Where do you find who the controlling agency is? Sometimes ATC will get it for you. Sometimes they'll give you clearance to enter that airspace, or you have to call someone on a certain number and or a certain frequency, and you have to get approval to enter that airspace. Okay. And here, right here, you have the number restricted 4401. Look on the back of the sectional. You have information about it. Okay. Appropriate clearance must be obtained before entering these areas. Looks like an inverted fence. It's marked in blue. Says R for restricted with its code. All right, warning areas. These are generally, I don't think generally. I think you'll always see these established on the coast. Okay, they go from the coast up to 3 nautical miles outwards, and they contain activity that may be hazardous to non-participating aircraft. The airspace is designated with a W followed by a control number. I'm going to be honest, I've never been around a warning area. I'm not even sure really what a warning area is. I just know that it exists and I got to be careful of it. But I think it's transitioning from controlled American airspace up to like open waters, essentially. Could be wrong, correct me in the comments. I'm not going to bother Googling it right now. But I will let you know, I'm pretty sure that's what it's for. Military operating area consists of airspace with defined and vertical lateral limits established for the purpose of separating certain military training activities from IFR traffic. Used to separate military and civilian operations. Clearance is not needed under visual flight rules. Okay, so you're going to see these big MOAs all over the place, and jets are flying through here doing aerobatics, dogfighting, all that stuff. Can you enter into an MOA without permission? Yes. Is that a good idea? Probably not. Can you let someone know that you're going to be flying through it? Yes, you can. Who is that going to be? Don't know. Check on the back of the sectional chart. I've had one time, I was flying to from KBOI to Twin Falls. The air traffic controller said, hey, do you plan on flying through the MOA? I said no, and they said, okay, well, if you want to, you can, because the MOA is not hot right now. Okay, so just be aware of it. I've never flown through an MOA. I know some people who just don't care and they'll do it, but I never have. All right, alert areas. These are areas of high training, okay, or unusual types of aerial activity. Pilots should exercise extreme caution in alert areas. Why? Because there's a lot going on. You'll have freaking gliders in these areas at the same time with parachuters. Then you have, like, let's say there's 3 or 4 flight schools in the area. I know that if you fly out of the Treasure Valley, you got Caldwell, you got Nampa, KBOI, and everyone is coming to this area to train. And if you look at the radar, it is insane, the traffic. You got SkyWest going this way, Alaska following behind them. You got 3 trainer aircraft right here. They're dropping parachutes over here. Gliders taking off. It is insane how it's not an alert area. Like on the sectional, it's crazy. I call it the hornet's nest. I never go over there because it's just way too busy. Okay, but it's marked on the sectional by a blue fence. All right, and it literally says A680. Okay, military training routes. All right, these are just routes that the military uses to train on. All you need to know is that when you go on a sectional chart and when you see VR, that means visual route, and there's a 4-digit identifier code that comes after that. If it is 4 digits, that means that it's 1,500 feet AGL and below. I don't know why. And then if it's 3 digits, that means it's 1,500 feet and below. Okay, things in the military don't make sense. This is one of them. Instrument training route. So it's going to be IR with a 3-digit identifier, which means it's above 1,500. Okay, if it was a 4-digit, it'd be under 1,500. But these are military training routes. They're going to be flying along this route. Okay. Special use airspace. Moving on. Parachute jump operations. Okay, I think this is the. Okay, so it looks like. I actually had another acronym to help me remember these, but I can't remember them anymore. But this goes outside of the RPM whack-em. All right, parachute jump operations. Guess what's going to be happening here? Parachute jumping. Boom, you got it. What does it look like on the sectional chart? A parachute. Moving on. Published VFR routes. I've never flown through one of these. I've hardly ever seen them because I'm not in any Class B airspace. But if I were to fly through it, I would tell you that it is a VFR, also known as flyaway corridor, transition route, terminal area VFR route. And basically, the way I have understood it, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you have a big chunk of Bravo airspace. I don't even think we could see it on our maps here, but you have a big chunk of Bravo airspace. Right here. You can see it. Let me turn this off here. Right here. These, I believe, like I said, I'm still new to this, right? I've been doing this for 2 years, 280 hours. I'm brand new to this. Okay, but right here you see these like magenta arrows. That means that these routes are generally found on, you can find them on TAC charts, but you can fly through these. And I believe that you need clearance, if I remember correctly. But just for the sake of this lesson, just know that these are published VFR routes. Okay, these arrows right here. Okay, national security areas. Okay, these are areas where. These are areas where flights in these areas may be temporarily suspended for any number of reasons. Let me give you an example. I live in downtown Boise. We have the Albertson Stadium. It's a football stadium. Whenever the game is going on, that turns into a TFR. You're not flying in the area. Why? Because there's 1,000 people in a tiny area, and if you crash a plane into that, that's pretty bad. Okay, so that turns into a TFR. I'm pretty sure the White House is under a permanent TFR. They call it, I'm getting this confused. Yeah, totally two different things here. NSAs, let me slow down here, are areas that may be temporarily suspended for any number of reasons. That's all you need to know. Those exist, okay? Right here it shows a power plant, okay? I know that they're under nuclear facilities, power plants. Let's see. Let's do this. Is the White House under a TFR or an NSA? So it's under a prohibited area. Okay, got it. Cool. I've been curious about that. Okay, aircraft defense identification zones. These are basically entryways into American airspace that when you're about 15 minutes away from it, you can give them a call and you can let them know, I'm coming in. Okay, I've never seen these, never had to deal with these. I probably never will. Aircraft identification zones. If you're starting to notice, we're starting to blow through this because we're coming up on our 30-minute mark. Wilderness areas. All right, these are areas, noise-sensitive areas, defines the surface of a national park, including parks, forests, primitive areas, wilderness areas, rec areas, national seashores. Okay, parks, right? They're trying to protect like vultures or gulls or eagles. Okay, and it is as the highest terrain within 2,000 feet laterally of the route of flight or the uppermost rim of a canyon or valley, okay? And it's depicted by these dots right here, okay? Notice to pilots, and it tells you pilots are requested to maintain 3,000 feet terrain clearance when over study areas, okay? Don't do it. Don't fly into it. There is some. I think there's some controversy about wilderness flight areas if you can fly into these areas below their request, and I think the answer is yes. However, you can get a fine or something like that. I don't know. It's really weird. Just don't fly into it. Okay, TFRs, protection of public figures, providing a safe area for disaster relief, prevent unsafe congestion of sightseeing aircraft, provides a safe area for space agency operations. Okay, this is what I was talking about with the Albertson Stadium near me. There's a lot of people in one area. There's a freaking football game. They're going to put a TFR over that area, okay? These come and go. They're temporary. Sometimes they last a day. Sometimes they last a week. And that's all you need to know. This one that it's showing right here is space operation area. So it sounds like they're launching rockets, okay? So Elon Musk is out here, and he's launching rockets up, and he puts up a TFR. Okay, lesson summary. We talked about class Alpha through Echo Airspace, including G. We talked about special use airspace and TFRs. Guys, I appreciate you guys watching this video. I would really appreciate some constructive criticisms, some things that I could do better, some things that were good, some things that you'd like to see in the future, and I will see you guys for the next lesson. Have a good one.